So at our church, I am in charge of everything from 5th grade on down. What that means is I oversee anything that is pre-K and younger, and directly hands-on with the curriculum and instruction for kindergarten up through 5th grade. But I see this in a lot of churches where, in children in general, but particularly with the little bitties, it's treated more like child care than it is like faith development. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I am too expensive to be a babysitter. You can find someone else for that. You don't have to pay their health insurance. But I'm here for faith development. I'm here to help grow young disciples and help them on their journey. And so what ended up happening and what works really well in our setting is that there's a couple of different things. I have there are several like part-time staff people at our church, and one of them, she's kind of a contemplative, prayerful guru. She's so good at that, just about this quiet vibe. So she goes in and she does sacred circle time with all the different pre-K and 3-year-old classes, and she just sits, she gets down with them on the floor, and she carries in a basket, and there's a big blue blanket. Come and sit down on the big blue blanket. Come and sit down on the big blue blanket. Come and sit down on the big blue blanket. Time to be with God. And they all sit in a circle, and she's got different things, like she has the world, which is the symbol of God the Creator, and then the cross is a symbol of God the Son, Jesus. And then sometimes there's bells for the Spirit. And we have an anointing balm, which is basically just hypoallergenic chapstick. And at the end, she'll do the sign of the cross, and she will anoint each child, either on their hand or on their head, and just give them a little simple blessing, and it's just the sweetest thing. So she does that for a little bit, and then I do music with Mr. Mark, because I want them to have some time with me. The pre-K 4-year-olds are actually, the pre-K sing in our youngest choir, but 3s and 2s. So I have 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds for this, but this translates, I think this goes well, probably up to kindergarten, and beyond that you might get them throwing things at you. I don't want to false advertise, but definitely with the early childhood. And they all come upstairs. It takes them forever to get up there. Imagine, when they're upstairs, imagine getting a room full of 2s. And here they come. And so this is my classroom, because the place where we're in is a classroom for the rest of the time. So this is my class. It goes with me everywhere. I love these old vintage suitcases, because they don't work for luggage anymore, the way they throw bags around. But that and my baritone ukulele, and my daughter has my case because she's got the better baritone ukulele. And that's what I just go with. This goes with me everywhere, and I can go if there's something in the room. I can go to their class, and I just got everything I need, and we'll unpack this in a little bit. So one of the things that I like to do is I may be the one who's responsible for really giving them the story, because the people who are in their rooms, they have to be ministry safe. They have to be able to change a diaper. They have to do a lot. They have to be, and so I could be real bent out of shape or have them all meet. And I did that when I first took over the program. Like, look, we need to do more on the first floor. And then I realized I'm looking at people that, unlike the Sunday school kids that I have who are, in 5th grade, and then at 11 o'clock they're in the sanctuary, these workers are with the same 2-year-old from 9:30 in the morning until noon in some cases. That's a different skill set than someone who's teaching the Zacchaeus story or doing a choral. And so I'm like, okay, they need my help. They need me to come in and do what I do. And so, excuse me, I thought I had it all cleared out. Sorry, a little phlegmy. There we go, that's better. So they come, I realize I'm the one that's probably going to give them their primary Bible content. So, pull the Bible. I love the Spark Story Bible. This is done by the Lutherans. It's wonderful. Yeah, go Lutherans. It's just fantastic. I mean, I've read a lot of picture Bibles and story Bibles for children, and a lot of them are just, they're too grown up or they're too babyish. This one is just about right, and beyond that, it's got so many stories in it. Most children's Bibles, they've got your greatest hits, like maybe 40 stories tops. This one's got well over 100. And the illustrations are appealing. There's not a ton of text, but there's enough to convey the story. And at the end, there's always like a little conversation starter. So this is the one of baby Moses. Do an experiment, see what kinds of things float in water. What would you build a floating basket out of? So just that are kind of on their level. And so we're going to read a story from, or if I'm going to tell a story, if we're going to sing something that is from the Bible, first of all, I got the Bible and said, what is this? It's the Bible. What is it? The book of? The book of God's love. And they know this because they know the song that we're about to sing. Am I just going to open up the Bible and read you a story? No! What do we have to do? Sing the song! So we sing the song, which I will teach you now. It goes like this. This is the Bible, the book of God's love. Sing that.
This is the Bible, the book of God's love.
This is the Bible, the book of God's love.
This is the Bible, the book of
This is the Bible. This is the Bible, the book of God's love. This is the Bible, the book of God's love. Written by people.
Written by people.
Inspired from above.
Inspired from above.
Oh. This is the Bible, the book of God's love.
This is the Bible, the book of God's
Good. So now
love.
we're all going to hold our Bibles and we're going to sing the whole song. The all part's their favorite part. Here we go. This is the Bible, the book of God's love. This is the Bible, the book of God's love. Written by people, inspired from above. Oh, this is the Bible, the book of God's love. It's a simple song. I use it for music with Mr. Mark. I use it for Vacation Bible School and VBS. We have assembly time. We have to have 3 assemblies for our kids because we're not a mega church. We're a regular downtown church, so we don't have a facility that can seat 700 kids. So I have to break it down. And I do 2 small assemblies. I do an assembly for just the 4-year-olds and an assembly for just the 3-year-olds. You don't put 4-year-olds in, that's going to be 180 4- and 3-year-olds. You don't put that many in one room at the same time. I also use it for, we have a preschool that's connected with our church, and I get to lead chapel, the monthly chapel services. And so we always sing that song. So every child that walks through our doors knows that song. That song came from, again, I Say Rejoice, by the way. That's Porters Guild put this out several years ago. It's got simple songs. We've done a few of them throughout the days. We'll do a couple more that are in here. I love simple songs that are easy to teach, easy to learn, easy to sing, and boom, you're off and running so that you're not having to stop and have choir practice when you're trying to do something more worshipful. So another song that I like to do, and this is something that the kids love. Children are concrete thinkers, which means that they're not necessarily, metaphor is hard for them. Something is something, and it's supposed to mean something. It's a hard time transferring that. And yet, they're great. They're symbolic thinkers. They understand symbols, and that symbols can, it's like if they see it, golden arches, they know that's McDonald's. If they see the mouse ears, they know that's Disney. They see the swoosh, the older ones know that's Nike. So they're fascinated with symbols. Well, most churches, most buildings are just packed with symbolism, from the cross to why is there a picture of a lamb? It seems to be everywhere. So this is the way I like to present different symbols. So you get a box. This is one that fits in there. The one I often use is a bigger black box. And I said, what is this, kids? A box! You want to see what's in the box? Yeah! Am I just going to open the box? No! What are we going to do? Sing the song! Everything has a song. Here's how the box song goes. What's in the box today? What's in the box today? Tell us, tell us, tell us, please. What's in the box today? Here we go. What's in the box today? What's in the box today? Tell us, tell us, tell us, please. What's in the box today? And it can be anything. Like it can be a shell. And I'll just put one thing in the box, and I always make a big deal. Still not a puppy. Is it a puppy this time? No, not this time. One year I did a whole thing on ponies, and then one day one of the teachers would put a plastic pony in there. Oh, look, a pony. And then, so you can even sing, so if you take the shell and you talk about the shell, and where do we find shells near, deep in the forest? No. Do we find them up in space? No. Where do we find them? In the water. Yeah, we find them in the water. And shells can be used for baptizing. When we pour water over someone's head and we say, this is God's special child, and God is happy with him or her. In fact, that's what happened when Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. The skies opened, and a dove flew down, and the voice said, this is my son, whom I dearly love. In him I find great happiness. And you know you're a special child made by God, and God is happy with you too. And you can even sing it, when we see the shell, we remember God's love. Jesus is God's special son. We remember God's love. So it's the same tune basically. Or when we see the cross, or when we see the light. This cross, I'll tell you a little bit about the cross that I put in here. I was in a staff meeting, and our youth director was going to do prayer stations for Lent, and she needed people to do tons of prayer cords. And I'm like, yes, give me those, because otherwise, meetings, right? And I found I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop making them and just touching them, because I'm a kinesthetic person too. And so then I started thinking, oh wait, what could be a really cool application of this for children? And so I started making crosses and put 5 knots. And so here's what the 5 knots, they're for the 5 different parts of the Lord's Prayer, which the Lord's Prayer in the Bible has 5 parts. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And when I'm teaching kids about, this is a sidebar, but I think this is moderately interesting. Anyway, when I'm teaching the kids about the Lord's Prayer, I always say, it wasn't that Jesus was saying, if you say these magic words, then you'll get your heaven ticket, right? Jesus was teaching them how to pray. Notice the first thing Jesus says is, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Jesus is putting God first. Think about all the great passages, the 10 Commandments. I'm the Lord your God, have no other gods before me. Put God first. The 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd. Put God first. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, strength, and yet put God first. When we put God first, everything else tends to fall in place. So that's why Jesus has that. So our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And I tell the kids that doesn't mean that we pray when we die we go to heaven. That means that we pray that things on earth can be as they are in heaven, and we have power to help make that happen. Give us this day our daily bread. That's all there is to that part. I tell the kids, we're not just praying for bread, we're praying for the things that we need to get us through. And did you notice, give us this day our daily bread? Not, dear Lord, give us all the bread we're ever going to need for the rest of our life and 2 more wishes, right? God's not a genie. So God, and what the message there, the subtle message is, rejoice always, pray without ceasing, right? That to continue to, God wants us to be in relationship with God constantly. So give us this day our daily bread. The implication is there that we're going to pray again and ask God yet again and be grateful for the things that, right, so give us today our daily bread and forgive us our trespasses or debts or sins as we forgive those who trespass against us. Because we need forgiveness. Now, when we say we're sorry, and I always tell kids about when you say you're sorry. When you say you're sorry to God, you aren't telling God anything that God doesn't already know. God, I mess up all the time, sometimes on accident, sometimes on purpose, sometimes accidentally on purpose. God knows about all of them before I even say a word, because God's God. But when I can say I'm sorry, when I can ask for forgiveness, that means I'm being honest with myself. And that makes that relationship with God that much more special, because God is always honest with me. So if I can be my truest, most honest self with God, that makes that relationship that much more special. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And that's where the prayer ends in the Bible. So then we go back to the cross right here, and the early church added a little doxology, for thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. And we now have one of the things that we do at our church is we have an academy model. That's what we do Sunday school. And one of the classes is the mission class. And we have kids that make tons of these. And so Mr. Mark's backpack always has these. So when I go to visit a child at a hospital who's about to have a procedure, if I'm going to the funeral of Meemaw or Gigi, or if I'm going to go visit a kid after they've just had a hard time, they get a cross. And if I've heard stories of parents where depending on the hospital, they'll let the kid have that cross under their pillow during the surgery, which is just, and then the kids have it by their bedside table, and I love that. The other time we use these is on Good Friday. We do a Good Friday service for children and families. Yeah. So one time I was doing a webinar and doing all these kinds of bells and whistles things, and someone asked, well, where's the contemplative? And, I try to take it at face value, because sometimes when people ask, where's the contemplative, what they really mean, that's code for, where's the quiet time for me? But I took it at face value and said, well, I think I offer quite a bit of contemplative, but let me get back to you on that and think about making sure that, because we do a lot, at our church we do a lot of drums and puppets and art and guitars and big stuff. So am I balancing that? Am I doing enough for kids to really delve deep? And so I started thinking like, well, okay, let's do more. Well, what's the hardest one? What would be the most crazy, hardest service to do with children? The day Jesus died, Good Friday. And so we do it, and it's beautiful. In fact, next week at Courtiers Guild Institute, I'm going to be presenting on it. And it's 45 minutes long. In fact, the Good Friday children's and family service has about the same attendance as the big church service, because we break it down, and we say it in language that's not manipulative, that's not gory. We don't focus on the violence, we focus on the love, the undying love. But because that service is contemplative, and because we want there to be more of a solemnity to it, but I don't like using the word shh in church. When kids are 18 years old and they say, what word do you remember hearing the most in church? I want them to remember hope, grace, love, peace, acceptance, not shh, not be quiet or just wait till we get home, which is kind of how I grew up. So we had several points throughout the service where we would do the Lord's Prayer. And in every chair, there was a prayer cross, and the kids got to take these home. And we would stop and say it. It gave them a chance to do something with their hands, gave them a chance to do something verbally, something that by the third time, even if they never heard the Lord's Prayer, they pretty much had it down. So it gave them something physical and tactile. I highly recommend that. Also, actually in that service were these tea lights in the shape of a cross. And then kind of another side note, we do tenebrae, is what we do, the service of shadows. And we do shadow images up on the wall, which gives us a chance to show a visual image without the blood and gore, right? But you can still see a picture of a cross, or you can see a picture of the 3 bags of money, or the rooster crowing, or the Roman soldier. But then on the floor is a giant cross made out of tea lights. And so the lights are kind of dim in the room so that you can project the shadow images, but this is what's at the center. And so at the very end we talk about, the people back then that night, they probably thought all hope was lost. But you can't have shadows without a light source. It's impossible. You can't have shadows without a light. For us, that light is Jesus. Jesus said that he was the light of the world. But there was more, but people back then thought the light had gone out. But Jesus had another message. He also said to all his friends, and you are the light of the world too. It's your job to shine. So on a night like tonight, when it can feel like the light is out, it's our job to be the keepers of the light. And so what I do is invite all the kids and the grown-ups to all come down and get a tea light, and we all leave the worship space as we sing, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And they take in a lot of kids to use this as their night light at home. Isn't that lovely? So I also keep the light in here when we do something on light. And I love that you can get these in bulk. You can get a thing of 100 of them for like $30, and they flicker. And the battery lasts a good long time. And they're safe, right? So that's a little bit about what's in the box today. And I love just the mystery of it. I could just show them a symbol, but there's the mystery of the box. It kind of builds the anticipation. Let's do it. This is a song that we sing with our whole selves. This is one from the resource too. I like songs that are simple but convey a strong message. All right, we've got my ukulele here. Let me try and let me get mine. Here we go. All right. I'm not going to try to play in F. Let's all stand up. This is a song about God's hands. right? And I always ask the kids, what do you think God's hands look like? And we look at our hands, and we trace them, and look at the little lines. Can you see your fingerprints? And go ahead and do it. Yeah. Do you know that there are no two sets of fingerprints that are exactly alike? And though there are just millions and millions and millions of people in the whole world with millions and millions and millions and billions of hands, that God knows every line in your fingerprint. God knows everything about your hands. Now we can think, we're made in the image of God, and we can think, well, if our hands look like this, that's maybe what God's hands look like too. And that's pretty close. But there's something that's even closer, and it has to do with this song. All right, so repeat after me. God's hands are your hands.
God's hands are your hands.
God's hands are my hands.
God's hands are my hands.
God's hands are our hands.
God's hands are our hands.
Now reach for neighbor's hand, which means you have to scoot over, even though you're a rebel. And then working together. So working, and then bring up to your shoulder together. So here we go. Working together. Right, so let's do all that so far. Here we go. God's hands are your hands. God's hands are my hands. God's hands are our hands. Working together. Can we repeat that? God's hands are your hands. God's hands are my hands. God's hands are our hands. Right. And then working for love. We'll do the sign for love. Now we're going to do the next verse, and it's going to be hope. Here we go. God's hands are your hands. God's hands are my hands. God's hands are our hands. Working together. God's hands are your hands. God's hands are my hands. God's hands are our hands. Working for hope. And then we'll do peace as the third verse. Here we go. God's hands are your hands. God's hands are my hands. God's hands are our hands. Working together. God's hands are your hands. God's hands are my hands. God's hands are our hands. Working for peace. See, was that like the easiest song in the whole world to learn? The motions help, right? We did that as an anthem. That's another song that's done, and again I say rejoice, but I did that with my little bitties, and it's precious, precious, precious to have them just doing a little bit of sign. Children doing sign language is just always a special moment. And then I had the kids, after we've done our little work, I said, okay, now look at your hands. Everybody look at your hands and wonder if those are what God's hands look like. Okay, here's what I want you to do. Everybody take your hands and reach them all the way up in the air and look around. This is what God's hand looks like. It's not just one hand or one set of hands. It's all of God, all of our hands, working together to lift up this world to make it all that God knows it can be. So another thing I like to share with people working with children of all ages, not just early childhood, is to not lose sight of the message for the metaphor. And what I mean by that is so many of the stories, especially in the New Testament, are metaphorical. You know, if you ask a room full of Christian educators what stories they like to teach the kids in the Bible, it's going to be a lot of New Testament stories, right? Because that we're New Testament people and the theology. If you ask a room full of children what their favorite stories are, no holds barred, it's about 80-20 Old Testament stories. Noah, Jonah, the creation, David and Goliath, Daniel in the lion's den, Shadrach and Benny, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. the peaceable kingdom. They love Joseph. They love those, Moses, burning bush. And then the New Testament stories they like are the stories about the life of Jesus, the birth of Jesus, the resurrection of Jesus, and a few of the parables that are real story driven, that are concrete. There's often a good guy and a bad guy. There are things that happen, and you can tell what they are. But the stories in the New Testament can be a little bit more abstract. When we think about the I am sayings, one time our senior pastor did a whole sermon series on the I am saying. I'm like, oh goodness, this is all metaphorical language. And so what am I? And well-intentioned. Oh, we could do this with the grapevine on this day, and this with the salt on this day. And I'm like, but it's not about vines. That story's not about vines. That story's not about salt. When Jesus tells the fishermen that once he's called them, put aside your nets and I will teach you to fish for people, and then a bunch of well-intentioned Christian educators around the country do all kinds of fishing activities. It's not about fish. It's not about fishing. But that's where it gets tricky. And see, those Old Testament stories, they're concrete, and the kids gravitate toward that. But so the New Testament stories can be tricky. So what we have to do, and this is one of the things that makes working with children so demanding, but makes our theology so strong, is we have to really boil a story down to its essence. What is this story really about? And then build it up from there, and not just get lost in the metaphor. Because otherwise the kids are going to go home, they're going to, we talk about sheep, we talk about mustard seeds. But what does that mean exactly? So not losing sight of the message for the metaphor. An example of that is the fruit of the Spirit. In fact, we just did a little mini-series on that. Is that in here? Make sure. Yes, I did have it. Yes, I wasn't sure for a second. I've had a little slide panic. We did the fruit of the Spirit. Of course, everybody wants to do something on fruit, right? In fact, even in our sanctuary for Big Church, there were, fruit trees and all that. I'm like, but it's not about fruit. It's not about fruit. And, that's okay for the adults, but that was confusing to kids. The fruit of the Spirit is all you can think about. It's like when we say, here, I raise mine Ebenezer. 99% of people start thinking about Dickens, right? Instead of a Helpstone. It gets confusing. So this one was on gentleness, which is one of the fruit of the Spirit. So it was important to really focus on gentleness. So I got out my friend Bubbles. Bubbles are so great. Bubbles are useful for a lot of things. Bubbles bring magic, or in church language, wonder to the party. I can pop this without spilling them all over the place. All right, I'm going to blow bubbles. I'm going to try to blow bubbles. I know, they're stubborn. I got to blow harder. I got one. I'm doing it wrong. What do I need to do? What, gently? That's right. Oh, you're right. I had to be gentle. I used gentle air, didn't I? Because when I blew it so hard, it didn't work. People sometimes think you have to try, if you do something and it doesn't work, you got to do it harder. You have to do it, sometimes you have to be very gentle. So, about another example. I've got a friend I want to show you. It's Zoe. Zoe's my friend, the bunny. You want Zoe to come out and say hi? I'm going to call Zoe. Hey, Zoe! Didn't work. Let's try it again. Maybe Zoe didn't hear me. I gotta say it louder. Hey, Zoe! Oh, it's not working. I should try a different way. What should I try? Should I try my gentle voice, my soft voice? Let's see if that works. That may be a better voice to use for a bunny. Let's see. Hey, Zoe, will you come out? My friends want to say hi. We'll promise we'll be gentle. Hey, Zoe. Hi, Zoe. How are you? You good? You good? What? Yeah? I think that's a wonderful idea. Would you like me to tell them? Zoe likes being together, especially when we're gentle, and she thought it might be nice if we sing one of her favorite songs. It's called The More We Get Together, and Zoe would like to about. Is that okay? Can we do the more we get together? Here we go. And sing. The more we get together, 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 the more we get together, the happier we'll be. 'Cause your friends are my friends, and my friends are your friends. The more we get together, the happier we'll be. Oh, she likes it. Oh, can I say bye to Zoe?
Bye, Zoe.
And puppets are just another one of those things. They're just magic. You know, we have a puppetry troupe at our church, and we have what's called threadbare theater, and we use a lot of found objects and recycled things to make our puppets. We don't typically use a lot of like store-bought puppets or even Muppety puppets, and we'll even do things with our tennis ball puppets, and which are great for modeling, singing. Those are so good. It's also, I was talking to someone who's does therapy with kids, and it's really good for strengthening, and there's so many uses for that. I got Lee Wotes. If you've ever gone to a workshop with him, he does a ton of stuff with toys, and so to show mal posture. But we were doing something with puppets, and we were at the Dallas Museum of Art, and we had to practice before the show. And kids are milling about because we're smack dab in the middle of where some of the kids' exhibits are. And we're like, well, let's just run through the show. And we're not ventriloquists, none of us are ventriloquists. We're talking as we're saying it. And let's just do it without our puppets. We'll just flap our hands. Kids came and sat down and watched our bare hands do a show and loved it because they're just mesmerized by it, which goes to show you really don't need to invest just tons of money trying to get these elaborate puppets. And I know there's some people that are really into doing the big pipe and drape staging. You don't need to do it. Okay, I have a new cue. They're right. The puppeteer is just right there. They're not visual. You just don't care, right? And kids are so imaginative. We have to trust their imaginations. That they're like, yeah, okay, right. I mean, I'll walk around with puppets all the time. They're talking to the puppet. They don't. I'm just the guy that brings the character, you know. So that's something I've done with bubbles. Yeah. So let's get a little bit more into that. Another thing I think it's really important for us to model is that that church is a safe place to feel all your feels. I think I was talking about this yesterday in Light Moments and Moments of Light when I was talking about the boy who was angry and then come to find out he was sad. He was sad because a friend of his was in another class and he couldn't be with his friend, and that made it but he was a boy, so he thought he could only be happy or angry because those are the only two emotions that a man gets to feel, right? And I think a lot of us can relate to that. I don't think that's necessarily gender specific. That there are just certain emotions that it's socially acceptable to feel, and there's emotions that it's not. Vulnerable, you're not allowed to feel vulnerable. Helpless, oh no. Oh, what a loser if you feel helpless and if you let anyone know that you can't do everything all the time by yourself. So church is the place, what I teach the kids all the time. What does sanctuary mean? Safe place. That's what sanctuary means. Sanctuary doesn't mean the fancy room with a big organ and where God sleeps. Right? Sanctuary means safe place. So our children need to know that they're safe to feel all their feelings. And so we do a lot of songs that model that, songs that have feelings. And we'll just do a simple one. I brought this ukulele all this way. I'll play it in a minute. And I'm always running out of guitar picks. We'll see if I've got one. Here we go. In my pocket. And usually I carry a few in my little suitcase. All right? So we're going to sing a song that goes like this. When I'm happy, God loves me, God loves me. God gave me feelings, many different feelings. God loves me, God loves me. Got it? Super simple song. And let's sing it with happy faces. Let's try it. Let's see how that works. Ready? Here we go. When I'm happy, God loves me, God loves me. God gave me feelings, many different feelings. God loves me, God loves me. Let's try that song again. Let's sing the same words when I'm happy, but let's have really sad faces when we sing it. Here we go. When I'm happy, God loves me, God loves me. God loves me. That didn't sound right, did it? Because you know what? Sometimes we're not happy. Sometimes we're sad. And we get to be sad and sound sad when we're sad. In fact, there's a whole book of song that's got all kinds of songs about people being happy and then sometimes being sad. It's called the Psalms. It's right there in the New Bible. So let's sing When I'm Sad. Here we go. When I'm sad, God loves me, God loves me. God gave me feelings, many different feelings. God loves me, God loves me. You know, we can be frightened. In the Psalms, there's times where people are frightened too, and the Bible's full of people who are frightened. It's okay to be scared sometimes, and God gave us these feelings for a reason. And by the way, have you seen the movie Inside Out? It's a Pixar movie. And if you have not seen it, you've got to see it. Because that movie it's all about feelings. And it's wonderful because it's given adults kind of a common ground to talk to kids about feelings. And Scared is the purple guy, right? I think Bill Hader is the one who plays the purple guy. And it's just like you can talk about it. You know, sometimes that purple guy is really important. Like if there's well, let's say if you're in an unusual place and an adult approaches you and you're not necessarily comfortable around that. You know, the fact that the hairs on the back of your neck are standing up on end, God gave you those hairs on the back of your neck for a reason. And you have a right to listen to those and go find an adult who you trust, right? So God gave it. Now we don't let the purple guy drive the bus the whole time, right? Very, very seldom. In fact, that's what I love about the movie, because Joy thinks that I'm supposed to be in charge of things the whole time. And then you learn through the course of it that all the feelings are valid and they'll have their place, and it's just wonderful. In fact, where was it at Disney World? There was something where there's a Pixar exhibit, and it had all the different movies. And it was like, what if toys had feelings? What if bugs had feelings? What if monsters had feelings? What if fish had feelings? What if feelings had feelings? And it's brilliant. So let's do When I'm Frightened. Here we go. When I'm frightened, God loves me, God loves me. God gave me feelings, many different feelings. God loves me, God loves me. We can do it even when we're angry. Did you know that even in the Psalms, people were angry? And you know what? It's okay to be angry. Jesus got angry a couple of times too. There's one time in particular where he got really angry, made a whip and everything. And it's okay. Now, it's better to be slow to anger. The one who's slow to anger is better than the mighty, right? But there's a whole book, and the Psalms, sometimes the people who wrote those got angry. You know what? And God wants you to bring your anger to God, because God's heart is big enough to handle it. So let's sing It's Angry. Here we go. When I'm angry, God loves me, God loves me. God gave me feelings, many different feelings. God loves me, God loves me. And then after we've delved into the being afraid and being sad or being angry, and then we come out of it. So let's be silly. Do you think God made us to be silly? If God didn't want us to laugh, we wouldn't have been made so giggly. If God didn't want us to move, we wouldn't have been made so wiggly. God loves you, and God made you just the way you are. So let's be silly. That's not getting a thumb out when we say that fun. Imagine eating your favorite flavor ice cream, and you had like 30 scoops of it, and now your tongue is frozen. Wouldn't that sound silly? And you're like, yes, Mr. Market will sound so silly. And you have to make sure they don't fit on the neighbor, because they're going to fit each other. So face this one as we sing the silly one. Here we go. When I'm feeling, God love me, God love me. God give me feeling, God give me feeling. God love me, God love me. And then we do happy one more time, and then we get out. So that's it, and you go through all the feelings. And then we have a prayer, and we talk about, God made you with all those different feelings for a reason. We get to feel all those feelings, and you're with people who love you and care about you, and they're going to love you no matter what. You are safe to feel those feelings. And we feel good about that. So we're going to return back to Bubbles again for a minute. because I mentioned this yesterday in the session where we talked about light moments and moments of light, that I had the daunting task of trying to figure out how to talk to the children in our preschool about when their music teacher died, Miss Sandy, who was a dear friend. She started in the adult choir when I was the adult choir director. Just a beautiful person, gorgeous voice, just an amazing person. And she became the preschool music teacher at our church. And she was in some declining health and slowed down, but this just happened suddenly. In fact, she died the same day. Remember in a previous session I was telling you about a boy that was in our a 6-year-old whose dad died? Same day. The same day. And so he got one of those crosses, right? But so I was struggling, and so the teachers were struggling, and Miss Nina, the preschool director, who happens to be my wife, was, well, we need to, what should we do? How do we talk to people about it? And I'm like, well, you know, what Mr. Rogers would say, anything mentionable is manageable. By the way, almost before I go to the Bible, I go to YouTube and I see if Mr. Rogers has said something about it, because it's going to be spot on. It's going to be in child-appropriate language. It will be honest. It will be real. It will be well thought out. I mean, if you ever, you know, the Fred Rogers Institute, it's basically, it's a bunch of child psychologists. I mean, his show, and Sesame Street too for that matter, they're so vetted in the best practices of child psychology. So don't overlook, go back and watch some old episodes of Sesame Street. If you want to find a way to handle death and dying, go watch the episode of Sesame Street the day that Mr. Hooper died. And they had to tell Big Bird. And in fact, I use this in church as another sidebar. See, this once again, it's the reason I have notes is to keep me on task. But they had to tackle it. The actor who played Mr. Hooper had died. And so they're like, children are going to deal with this. We need to help them. That's why we're here, is to help them. So when are we going to air this episode? So they decided to air the episode on Thanksgiving. Why? That's when the most families, it's a weekday, when most parents would be home and could sit with their child and watch it together and be there to soothe them. Now they couldn't get the theology behind it. They couldn't say, well, that's part, and that Mr. Hooper's in heaven now. They couldn't really get into that, but they were able to grieve. They were able to mourn. They were able to talk about that he won't be coming back, because Big Bird, by the way, did you know that all the puppet characters, they have a psychological age, and they stay true to that age. So whatever that puppet or that character's age is, that's their psychological age, and so the writers have to be true to that. And so Big Bird, as kind of an early child mind, is struggling with the permanence of death. And in early childhood, preschool and younger in particular, they don't understand that death is permanent. And 2-year-olds, I would talk with them, they really don't understand it. So you're just starting the conversation. So working back to Mr. Rogers, as we go down from one bunny trail now, let's work it back to Mr. Rogers. And that's one of the things he would talk about, is just the permanence of it. And to not use euphemisms. Past, went to sleep for a long time, is no longer with us. But die, use the actual word die. Children can handle that word. Grown-ups have a hard time with it. We want to soften it because we don't want to feel like we're hurting children. You're not hurting children using the concrete language. What hurts is that there's mystique that doesn't need to be there. Because then a child is left to work that out for themselves, and who knows what conclusion they're going to come up with. So you gently using the correct language is the best way to go. So dialing back that one more step. So how was I going to talk to all these children about it? So I called my dear friend Leanne Hadley, who is a brilliant children's minister. She's my Yoda. So whenever I have a tricky issue, I call her, and she usually calls me back within an hour. I don't know what I'm going to do without her. So she's up in Kentucky now at Christ Methodist, I believe, in Louisville. She wrote a wonderful book, by the way, called Touching Heaven. Some of you have already written this down. It's a beautiful book. And she was a chaplain at a children's hospital in Colorado Springs. And each chapter in this book is devoted to an experience she had with a terminally ill child. So do not read the book in one sitting. It will crush you. but it's the beauty of it and how she helped people through it, and just the kind of the bravery to write that book. I think is just phenomenal. So she said, "Well, your 2-year-olds, they just need a safe place. Just have a ritual, have a picture of her, sing a song that she would have taught them, have a prayer, and that's it. And that's all that they can handle." 3 is pretty much the same thing. 4s, they're starting to understand just a little bit, but they still have a hard time with the permanence of it. That's what we did. So we brought all the kids, and we got down on the floor, and we were in the music room, in Miss Sandy's room, where she would have sat with the kids. And we had a picture of Miss Sandy. We found just a wonderful picture. It was put a picture in it. It was in the bulletin. And so the first thing we talked about was, this is Miss Sandy, and Miss Sandy died. And that's sad. And the people who knew her and loved her are sad, because they're not going to get to see her anymore because her body died. And they're sad because they still love her very much. So love is an amazing thing. And did you know that love can never die? So, and the kids kind of know that. And here's something where we get a little metaphorical, but I don't try to connect the metaphor. I just have it be an experience. So let's look around for air. We can't see the air, can we? Look around. We can't see the air, but it's there, right? We know it's there. Taking a breath. We're breathing in air. Blow some air. Blow some cool air. Taking another breath and blow hot air. Yeah, where does that air go? It's still there, right? It's all around. Here come the bubbles again. Let's blow some bubbles. And all that air is in those bubbles. Every one of those bubbles is filled with air. And those bubbles get to float, and they get to hold rainbows and light for a short amount of time, and eventually pop, and the bubble's gone. But where's the air? It's still around. Taking a breath. The air is still there. Let's do that again. And some of the air is in those bubbles, those beautiful bubbles, and each one of those bubbles has a life. Some of them are a little shorter, some of them are longer. And eventually, every bubble will pop. But where's the air? Where's the air? It's still here. It's still around us. Miss Sandy died, and we're not going to get to see her anymore. And that's sad. But where's the love? Can you still feel love for Miss Sandy right here? Taking a deep breath and say, love. Taking another breath and say, love. Yeah, that's what's wonderful. God's love isn't going anywhere. Our love for Sandy is still here. Her love for us is still here. So let's sing together a song about love, about someone who loves us very much, Jesus. Let's sing Jesus Loves Me, which is a song that Miss Sandy taught them. Here we go. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to Him belong. They are weak, but He is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so. Let's do a prayer. It's going to be a bubble prayer. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about a special memory you have. And since I'm going to think about Miss Sandy right now, I want you to think about someone who's special to you, who has died, but you still love them very much. And as the bubbles are drifting and floating and falling, I want you to hold that person in your heart. Amen. Thank you. I haven't thought about singing for a while. She was a special person. Kids get it. Not all prayers have to have a bunch of these and thous and wherefores and shalls. You can pray with bubbles. You can pray with breath. You can pray with your eyes open. You can pray with your eyes closed. You can do sung prayers. You can do rhythm prayers. You can do playful prayers. You can do dancing prayers. And children get it, because when we're praying, we're talking with God, not to God. We're talking with God, because we also need to be open to what God has to say to us. And what God is telling me right now is, Mark, don't hand low, because once again, Leanne Hadley would say, you take them deep, and then you come out of it. So before we end, I wanted to show you some of the other things that I carry around with me. I carry around a few different instruments. Oh, here's my other picks. I carry a shaker. I carry a kazoo. And I think metal kazoos are good, hard plastic kazoos, but if you get those soft plastic ones, they don't last. So you want a kazoo, and so sometimes, and the kids just love the sound of kazoo, they think it's great. I've got balls, so sometimes we'll do a passing game when I keep 3, because sometimes I'll just juggle just to keep their attention. A recorder, so that I can just, for playing whatever song. And then in here, I keep a few other instruments. Just different odds and ends. Mainly they're sound effect instruments so that we can use for telling stories. Let's see. Oh, balloons. Always have balloons. There's all kinds of sounds that obviously can do balloons. And you can do the whole air thing again, using the balloons as an example. A triangle, anything that's got a star. Or you can do something where you have the kids close their eyes, and then you get in a different pose for a different Bible person, and then you have them open, and then you're that different Bible person. You can slide whistle. Zacchaeus climbed up the sycamore tree. And then Jesus said, Zacchaeus, come on down, for I must stay at your house today. All right? Even this, the nose flute. Ever seen a nose flute before? Let me just show off for just a quick second. You blow the air in through there, and then the position you do with your mouth. Takes a lot of breath to do it. And then the jaw part. So Jesus was on the road, and there were 10 people who were sick, and they had something called leprosy, and they said, Master, please heal us. And he healed them, and they were so happy they all jumped for joy. And one came back to say, thank you. All right? And you just dress up any story with this. Oh, and I did show you the frog. These are great. Somebody's seen these before. And so you start from the back, if you do the real ribbit. And I've got a bigger one that's got a more throaty bullfrog sound, but that doesn't really fit in the computer. All right. And if you want a good temple block sound, playing on the chin is the best place to play. You should experiment. This is when my wife would say, you have too much free time on your hands. And I used to carry a drum in here, a little small frame drum, and it was taking up too much space. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. My drum. Because it needs to be portable so that my entire class fits in there. But everyone's favorite, Charlie. Oh, Charlie this, Charlie that. So I usually save Charlie for the end, and I'll tell you how I use Charlie the most. Charlie's a one-trick pony, and the kids love it. It's their favorite trick. They ask about Charlie. They tell their parents about Charlie. They want to know how Charlie is doing. One year we did a Christmas Eve puppet show where we developed a whole show where it was a little mini musical based on the Gift of the Magi, and he had a wife. And so the kids all want to know how the wife is doing. Is everybody okay? We don't see her very often. But if I don't bring Charlie out every single week, there are tears. But I was going to tell Charlie something. And they just want to pet Charlie and say hi. And so, can we see Charlie? Yes! And Charlie comes out. Hey everybody, how you doing? They all start giggling, and he's got a Jersey accent. I married a Jersey girl, so that's one of the accents, and I hear it a lot. Oh, that's really more of a stereotype, I suppose. It definitely is. But hey, how you doing? And everybody's like, yeah. And usually I bring him out, it's on a song that we just worked on, like, this is my commandment, that you love one another. And then we do, as I have loved you. This is my commandment, that you love one another, as I have loved you. As I have loved you, as I have loved you. This is my commandment. And we do the song, and they know part of it, but they're still struggling. But if I keep doing the song over and over again, they're going to get bored. So that's usually when I bring out my good friend Charlie. Okay, I'm going to try to sing the song. Okay, and do you know what? If Charlie gets the words all right, we're going to cheer. Yes. You think he's going to get all the words right? No. So if he messes up a word, you tell him where he messed up and then with the right word. Okay, here we go. This is my ham sandwich that you love. No, this is my commandment. Let's say that word again. That's a big word. This is my commandment. Okay, let's try. A commandment. Okay, here it is. This is my commandment that you shove one another. No! Oh, we would never shove one another. What is it that you love? Okay, let me try it again. This is my commandment that you love one another as I have loved food. I know you love food, but that's not how the song goes. It's, this is my commandment that you love one another as I have loved you. Oh! Well, that's nice. That's lovely. Let me try it again. This is my commandment that you love one another as I have loved you. And then you go through the whole song like that. And then they all cheer, yay! I've got an idea. Let's all do the song together. And then we do the song and they know it cold. And then, bye everybody, bye Charlie. And Charlie goes back to sleep and that's it. And you know, one of the other, I don't have it in my bag right now, but one of our stories for VBS was the Road to Emmaus, and so we needed fake bread. So I've got fake bread that's in there. You can see that, and it's like that's Charlie's meal. But that's in the box when we do the symbols for communion. I have a cup and I have the bread. So anyway, he's the absolute favorite. So the moral of the story is not go get yourself a mouth that looks just like this and do Charlie. It's find a puppet that's really cool. And that I love going to wherever you can go online to Folk Manus or Whole Earth Provision Company has tons of those. I don't know if they've got any. They've got a couple in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But just find a puppet that works for you. Find a voice that you can sustain and do. I used to try to do Grover. That's probably why I'm paying for it now. I have to use a microphone just to talk because that hurts. Doing Grover. I don't know how Frank Oz did it. So you just got to find a voice that works for you. It's different from yours. And it's almost like a guest clinician. Right? Have you ever brought a guest clinician that comes in and they tell you all these things and then they go and then the choir's like, he told us to sit tall and to breathe from the diaphragm. It was revolutionary. I'm like, I tell you that. But they're tired of hearing you say it. You're just a talking head, right? But the guest clinician can say it, and it's just the gospel truth, and it's the most amazing thing ever. So, and it freshens it up. It just adds another voice, and people like puppets. There's a reason that The Lion King on Broadway is still just, aside from the music and the story, that's all puppets. Once again, and you can see the puppeteers the whole time. Does that make it less fascinating or more fascinating, right? It's just, the first time I saw Lion King, I just cried. I cried. It's giraffes, it's people on stilts, and I'm bawling because it's just so beautiful. It's just that the human mind could come up with that. Anyway, that's a little bit of. It's just fun. Hopefully it's literally a suitcase of tricks. But any questions or?
No, I'm so sad for you because you just hate your job.
You turned into a job.
I love it. But I will say, I know this is being videoed and on camera. I will confess that there are 6 days a week that it's meetings and beatings and this, that, and the other. But man, and you can forget why you're doing it. I can forget why I'm doing it, and I can get sick of it, and I can get burnout, and I can get gripey, and even a little bit toxic if I'm not careful. And then Sunday morning comes. And I'm like, oh, you're here. This is why I do this. This is why we do it. And so I've got one of my assistants that works in the office with me, and I'll sometimes just go down and be in a room with kids. Because she has to do a lot of the hard stuff. I get to be the fun guy, and she's like the assistant principal. And I'm like, just go sit in a room with kids for a few minutes and just soak it all up. And we're all lucky to get to do this, aren't we? We're so lucky. that we're called to do this. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Yeah, you're all.